The last train to nowhere. It was just after 11:30 p.m. when I missed my usual train. That might not sound like much, but in my city, the trains run on a strict schedule, and if you miss the second-to-last ride of the night, you're stuck waiting in the underground station for almost an hour. I was tired, irritable, and already rehearsing the story I'd tell my boss the next morning about why I'd be dragging my feet into work late. The platform was emptier than usual. The fluorescent lights hummed faintly overhead, buzzing with that sickly white glow that always made the tiled walls look dirtier than they already were. A thin breeze carried down the tunnel every few minutes, making the trash on the ground twitch and skitter like it was alive. I pulled my jacket tighter. It wasn't cold, not exactly, but the air had that stale, metallic bite unique to subway stations, like breathing in rust and old dust. There were only 3 other people on the platform, a young couple whispering at the far end, their voices bouncing against the curved ceiling, and a man sitting alone on a bench a few yards from me. He wore a dark coat and had his hands folded neatly on his lap, staring at the tracks like he was trying to memorize them. I glanced at the electronic board overhead. The next train wouldn't arrive for 23 minutes. I groaned, and that's when the man on the bench spoke. "You shouldn't be here this late." His voice wasn't loud, but it carried across the platform as if the tiled walls were helping him. I blinked, unsure if he was talking to me. "Sorry?" I asked, half turning. His eyes met mine. They were wide, too wide, and they didn't blink. His lips curled into something that wasn't quite a smile. "You shouldn't be here this late," he repeated. My stomach gave a little twist. Something about the way he said it was wrong, like he was quoting someone, reciting the words without emotion, like lines from a script. I forced a chuckle. "Yeah, well, I missed my train." He didn't respond. He just kept staring. I shifted uncomfortably and pulled my phone out, pretending to scroll through messages. But the reception down here was spotty at best, and the little spinning circle on my screen only heightened the unease crawling up my spine. 2 minutes later, the couple at the far end of the platform got up and walked toward the exit stairs, laughing softly. Their footsteps echoed until the sound faded completely, leaving just me and the man on the bench, alone. The platform felt different, then emptier, heavier somehow. I tried not to look at him, but the silence pressed on me until I couldn't help it. His posture hadn't changed, hands folded, eyes locked on the dark tunnel, lips fixed in that faint, almost smile. I cleared my throat. "Do you take this train often?" His head twitched, like he hadn't expected me to speak again. Then, slowly, he turned to face me fully. "I used to," he said, "but now I just watch." A chill prickled the back of my neck. Watch what? The ones who don't come back. I swear the lights flickered then, just for a second. My rational brain scrambled for explanations. Maybe he was drunk. Maybe he was homeless and not fully there. That would have made sense. But his clothes were clean. His coat looked almost new. And his voice was too steady. The sound of approaching wind in the tunnel pulled my attention. I stood up instinctively, relieved at the distraction. The faint rumble of the train grew louder, and soon headlights pierced the darkness. But as the train screeched into the station, something about it felt off. The cars were older, much older than the ones I usually rode. The paint was chipped, the windows grime-streaked, and the whole thing rattled with a noise that set my teeth on edge. The doors slid open with a screech that made me wince. I glanced back at the man. He was standing now, too, though I hadn't seen him rise. He nodded toward the train. "This one?" he said softly. "It's yours." I hesitated. My guts screamed at me not to step inside. But the station was silent, the electronic board above still blinking the countdown to the real train another 15 minutes away. I told myself it was just an older model they had thrown back into rotation. That happened sometimes, didn't it? I stepped inside. The first thing I noticed was the smell. A damp, moldy stench, like old newspapers soaked in water. The seats were cracked, the floor sticky. The fluorescent lights flickered, casting the car in alternating shadows. I turned back. The man hadn't followed. He was still on the platform, staring at me, and as the doors slid shut, I could have sworn he mouthed something. "Don't." The train lurched forward before I could react. The train jerked as it picked up speed, and I staggered before grabbing one of the cold steel poles. The sound of the wheels grinding against the tracks was deafening in the nearly empty car, echoing unnaturally, like the tunnel was much wider than it should have been. I expected to see other passengers, maybe someone sleeping in the back, but the car was empty, completely. No newspapers abandoned on the seats, no graffiti scrawled across the walls, just dust clinging to every surface and a strange faint vibration underfoot, as if the train itself was humming. I slid into one of the cracked seats and tried to steady my breathing. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe this was just one of those late-night runs with little traffic. But then I noticed the advertisements overhead. The posters were faded, their colors drained. A smiling man in an old-fashioned suit held a bottle of soda I'd never heard of, the slogan beneath him written in a font that looked like it belonged to another decade. Another ad showed a movie I vaguely recognized, except it had come out when I was a child, and all of them had faces where the eyes had been scratched out. I swallowed hard. My hands trembled, and I pressed them against my knees to steady them. The train roared through the tunnel, faster than usual. No stops yet, though we should have hit one already. I checked my phone, hoping for some distraction, but the screen was black. Dead. I knew it had been at 40% battery before I got on. That's when I heard it. A shuffle from the car behind me. I froze, straining my ears. At first, I thought I imagined it the sound of movement on sticky floors. Then came the distinct creak of a door sliding open. I twisted in my seat. The door at the far end was cracked open just slightly, a sliver of the next car visible. Beyond it, I could hear soft footsteps. Slow. Deliberate. "Hello?" My voice sounded too loud in the empty car. The footsteps stopped. I waited, my heartbeat pounding in my throat. For a moment, the silence was unbearable. Then, the door clicked shut again. I sank back, every muscle in my body tense. My mouth was dry, my palms damp. I told myself someone else was on the train, that's all. Someone late, maybe moving between cars. Normal. But if that were true, why didn't they come through? The train screeched suddenly, slowing down. I stood, relief flooding me, ready for the doors to open to a station. Any station. Instead, the windows revealed nothing. The train had pulled into what looked like a station, but it wasn't one I recognized. The platform outside was shrouded in dim yellow light, tiles cracked, ceiling dripping with water. No signs, no maps, no posters. Just a single bench in the center, empty. The doors slid open with a metallic groan. A gust of cold air swept in, bringing with it the smell of stagnant water and mildew. I didn't move. Every nerve in my body screamed not to. And then, from the bench outside, something shifted. At first, I thought it was a shadow, a trick of the flickering lights, but then it rose. Slowly, a shape unfolding itself from the bench, tall and angular, limbs too long. It didn't move toward me. It didn't have to. The way its head turned slow, jerky, unnatural until it faced me, was enough. I stumbled back a step, my hand fumbling for the door controls. But before I could press anything, the train lurched forward again, leaving the figure behind in the growing dark. I collapsed into the seat, gasping, my whole body shaking. This wasn't right. None of this was right. I needed to get off. The problem was, the train wasn't stopping at the stations I knew. It kept pulling into places that didn't exist. Platforms crumbling with age, walls painted with murals I'd never seen, entire stretches of darkness where the windows reflected only my terrified face. Once, the doors opened to reveal a platform full of people, except they were standing perfectly still. Hundreds of them, all facing the train, not moving, not blinking. I refused to step off. The doors closed, and as the train rolled forward again, I could swear their heads turned in unison to watch me leave. I lost track of time. 10 minutes, 20, maybe an hour, it didn't matter. My sense of direction dissolved. The car seemed longer now, stretching each time I looked down the aisle. The ads above me had changed too. Some were blank, others were filled with smudged black text I couldn't read. And then I saw him, the man from the bench. He was sitting across from me now, hands folded neatly in his lap, coat pressed, eyes wide. "You shouldn't be here this late," he said again. My breath caught. How did you—" He leaned forward. His eyes were darker this time, shadows spilling out of them, swallowing the whites. "This train doesn't stop where you think." I bolted up, sprinting toward the far door. My palms slapped the metal, shoving it open into the next car. But it was the same. Same cracked seats, same flickering lights, same stench. Except this time, someone else was sitting at the other end. A woman in a faded dress, her face pale, her hair stringy and wet as if she had just climbed out of water. She lifted her head slowly, and I realized her lips were moving, whispering something I couldn't hear over the thunder of the train. I backed away, tripping over a seat, my eyes locked on her. Her whispering grew louder, then louder still, until it was in my ears, inside my head, words I couldn't make out but that filled me with a terror so deep I wanted to claw them out. I stumbled into the next car, and the next, and the next. Each one held someone else, each one wrong. Their faces pale, their eyes too dark, their movements too slow, like puppets on tangled strings. And in every car, they whispered the same thing. "You shouldn't be here this late." By the time I slammed through the 6th door, I was sobbing, my throat raw, legs aching. I collapsed against a pole, clutching it like it could anchor me to reality. The train slowed again. I didn't look out the window this time. I didn't want to know what was waiting. But when the doors opened, a rush of air hit me. Fresh air, cool, crisp, carrying with it the faint sound of traffic above. A normal station. I almost didn't believe it. The tiles were clean, the signs familiar, the stairs leading up to the street glowing with pale light. I staggered out, stumbling onto the platform. When I turned back, the train was gone. Not pulling away, not vanishing into the tunnel. Gone. Just tracks stretching into darkness. I made it home that night, though I don't remember the walk. My phone worked again as soon as I reached the street. Battery at 40%, like nothing had happened. But I haven't taken the subway since. I walk everywhere now, no matter how far, no matter the weather. And sometimes, late at night, when the streets are empty and the wind is low, I can still hear it, the faint rumble of wheels grinding on tracks deep beneath the city, and the whisper, carried up through the grates in the sidewalk, "You shouldn't be here this late." The man in the service tunnel. It was close to 1 a.m. when I found myself locked in the subway station. Not trapped exactly, the gates upstairs were open, but the last train had come and gone, and I was stuck waiting until morning. I worked late at a downtown bar and missed the final run home. I thought I'd wait on the platform, kill time on my phone, then ride back when the system opened at 5 o'clock. The station was silent, the kind of silence that feels heavy. Fluorescent lights buzzed faintly, casting a pale glow over the concrete. Every sound I made, shoes scuffing the tiles, zipper pulling on my backpack, echoed far louder than it should have. I sat on a bench near the middle of the platform, trying to get comfortable. The air was damp, carrying the faint smell of oil and mildew. I hated being underground for so long. The walls always seemed too close, the ceiling too low, even if logically I knew it wasn't true. About 10 minutes in, I heard it. A clang. Metal striking metal, faint, from down the tunnel. I froze. Rats, I thought. Maybe a loose pipe. But the sound came again, clearer this time. A hollow bang, like someone had kicked a steel door. I leaned forward, peering down the dark stretch of tunnel. Nothing. Just the rails vanishing into blackness, the faint red glow of the signal light. Then, from behind me, a voice. "You waiting too?" I nearly jumped out of my skin. A man was sitting on the bench across the platform. I swear he hadn't been there before. He wore a janitor's uniform, dark navy, reflective strips on the arms. His cap was pulled low, shadowing his face. "Sorry," I muttered. heart racing. "Didn't see you come in." He chuckled softly. "Happens. Not many people around at this hour." His voice had a gravelly quality, low and tired. Something about it eased my nerves slightly, though my pulse was still thudding in my ears. Another clang echoed from the tunnel. This time, he smiled. I could see the edge of his teeth in the dim light. "They've been at it all night," he said. "In the service tunnel." I frowned. "What service tunnel?" He raised a gloved hand and pointed down the tracks. About 30 yards away, just before the tunnel swallowed the rails, I saw it. A narrow steel door set into the wall, almost invisible against the grime. "You'd miss it if you didn't know," he said. "Workers go in there. Maintenance. Sometimes they don't come out." My stomach tightened. "What do you mean?" He leaned back on the bench, folding his arms. "They send them in to fix something. Lights, wiring, flooding. Then the door closes, and that's that. You don't see them again. The supervisors chalk it up to desertion, accidents, paperwork errors. But I've been down here long enough to know better." The clang came again, louder this time. It didn't sound like rats. I tried to laugh it off, but the sound caught in my throat. "So what? What do you think happens to them?" The janitor's head tilted slowly, like a dog hearing a distant noise. "You don't want to know." He stood then, stretching. The fluorescent lights above flickered once as he moved, and for a moment, his shadow stretched far too long across the tiles. I blinked, and it was normal again. He pointed toward the door. "But you could check." My skin prickled. "No thanks. I'm good right here." He shrugged. "Suit yourself. But sometimes, the door doesn't like to wait." I didn't understand what he meant until I looked back at it. The steel door was open. Not wide, just a sliver, enough for a slice of darkness to spill out into the tunnel. I felt my chest tighten. I could have sworn it had been closed just a minute ago. "Maybe a worker left it unlocked," I muttered, more to myself than to him. But when I turned back, the janitor was gone. The bench across the platform was empty. My throat went dry. I stood up, scanning the station. No footsteps, no echo, no retreating figure. Just gone. And then the banging started again. Not one clang this time. Repeated. Rhythmic. Like fists pounding from the other side of the steel door. I don't know why I moved closer. Curiosity, stupidity, adrenaline, it doesn't matter. Every step down the platform made my body scream to turn back. The air grew colder as I neared the tunnel, the smell sharper, metallic, like rusted blood. The door was just ahead now, heavy steel, its surface mottled with grime and scratches. The open gap looked impossibly black. I froze, my ears strained. The banging had stopped. Instead, I heard something else. Breathing. Shallow, raspy, like someone just inches away, waiting. I told myself to go back, to sit down, to wait until morning. But my hand lifted, almost against my will, and pressed against the cold metal edge of the door. The moment I touched it, the breathing stopped. A voice whispered through the crack, "Help me." I jerked my hand back, heart hammering. The voice was low, trembling. A man's voice. "Please, they locked me in. You have to open it." I swallowed hard, eyes darting up and down the empty tunnel. "Who are you?" No answer, just more ragged breathing. "Please," the voice said again, desperate this time, "before it comes back." The hairs on my neck stood straight. Before what comes back? I should have walked away. I know that now. But I wrapped my fingers around the handle and pulled. The door groaned as it opened, metal shrieking against stone. A blast of cold air hit me, damp and fetid, reeking of mold. The service tunnel stretched ahead, narrow and low, lit by a single flickering bulb that swung as though stirred by a breeze. And in the shadows beneath it stood a man. His clothes were torn, stained with something dark. His skin was pale, his eyes wild. He stumbled toward me, hands outstretched. "Thank God," he rasped. "You have to close it. Now, before it knows." I froze, unable to move. Before what knows? The man's gaze snapped past me, down the tunnel behind. His face drained of all color. "It's already here." And then I heard it. A sound unlike anything human. Not footsteps, not breathing. A scraping, wet, dragging, like claws across stone, and beneath it, a low moan, deep and guttural, vibrating through the walls. The man shoved me, hard. "Run!" I stumbled backward onto the platform. He slammed the door shut, metal reverberating with the force. On the other side, the scraping grew louder, faster. Then boom, the door shuddered as something massive slammed into it. Dust shook loose from the ceiling. The man screamed. Not in pain, in terror. "Don't let it open!" He pressed against the door with all his strength. I staggered to my feet, wanting to help, but my legs wouldn't obey. Another slam. The steel warped inward, bending. A crack split down the middle, just wide enough for me to see an eye. But it wasn't an eye. Not really. Too large, too dark. No pupil, no white. Just an endless, liquid blackness staring back at me. The man shrieked as something pulled him against the gap. His body convulsed, arms thrashing as if unseen hands had hooked into his flesh. Blood sprayed across the door. And then, with a sickening snap, he was gone. Dragged into the darkness. The door slammed shut on its own, the sound echoing through the tunnel. I ran. I didn't care where, back to the platform, up the stairs, past the locked turnstiles. I clawed my way to the street level, lungs burning, legs screaming. When I finally burst into the night air, I collapsed on the pavement, gasping. The city was silent around me, not empty, but silent like all sound had been swallowed. I looked back at the entrance to the station. The gate was closed now, padlocked, and on the metal surface, fresh scratches carved into the steel. 4 deep, parallel lines, like claws. I quit my job the next day, found another place, closer to home. But sometimes, when I walk past subway grates at night, I swear I hear it. That scraping, that moan. And I know if I ever set foot in a subway station again, the door will be waiting. And this time, it won't stay closed. The announcer's voice. I used to work the night shift in a downtown subway control booth. It wasn't glamorous, mostly sitting behind a scratched glass window, monitoring cameras, answering calls from the occasional lost commuter, but the pay was decent, and the quiet hours suited me. I'd bring books, podcasts, sometimes just zone out listening to the hum of trains below. But there's one night I can't explain, and I don't talk about it anymore. Because every time I do, people look at me like I'm crazy. It was 2:14 a.m. when I first noticed something strange. The station was long since closed, gates locked, trains stopped, the tunnels dark. My booth sat at the top of the central staircase, giving me a view of the deserted platform below. The only light came from the flickering fluorescence, buzzing faintly like flies trapped in glass. I was sipping lukewarm coffee, scrolling mindlessly through my phone, when the loudspeaker crackled. "Next train arriving on track 4. Please stand back from the yellow line." My head snapped up. That wasn't possible. There were no trains running, not until 5 a.m. I stared at the PA system speaker mounted above the booth. The voice was calm, clipped, the same automated announcement I'd heard 1,000 times, except it wasn't the usual recording. It was different, slower, the cadence just slightly off. I pushed the intercom button, testing the system. Static hissed back, normal. I checked the monitor displays. Every platform was empty, every tunnel dark. Faulty wiring, I muttered. Old system. But before I could settle, the speaker crackled again. "Next train arriving on track 4. This time, it was whispered. so soft I barely caught it. My scalp prickled. I stood, leaning against the glass, staring down at the empty platform. Nothing moved. Nothing. Then the cameras flickered. For less than a second, the monitor showing track 4 cut to black. When the picture returned, someone was standing on the platform. A woman. She faced away from the camera, long dark hair hanging down her back, a pale dress clinging to her thin frame. She stood perfectly still at the edge of the yellow line, staring into the tunnel. My throat tightened. No one should have been down there. The gates were locked. I grabbed the radio, voice shaking. Control to Central Dispatch. Possible trespasser at Station 32, platform level. Requesting confirmation. Static. No response. I tried again. Dispatch, do you copy? Nothing but hiss. When I looked back at the monitor, the woman was gone. The platform was empty again. I told myself I was overtired, hallucinating. I'd been on a streak of 12-hour shifts, barely sleeping between. But then the PA clicked back on. This time, the voice wasn't automated. It was a woman's voice, and it said my name. Michael. I froze. No one should have access to the announcement system except staff, and there were only 2 of us scheduled that night. I grabbed the phone and dialed the other guard. No answer. Straight to voicemail. I dialed again. Still nothing. The PA hissed softly above me, like whoever was on the other end was breathing into the mic. I backed into the booth's corner, staring up at the speaker. My pulse was hammering, sweat beading on my forehead. "Who is this?" I shouted. For a moment, silence. Then, next train arriving, on track 4. Except this time, the voice broke halfway, words twisting into a low moan, stretched and distorted, filling the booth with a sound that wasn't human. I slammed the power switch on the PA system. The hiss cut off instantly. And all at once, the booth lights flickered and died. The station plunged into darkness. I stood there, gripping the edge of the desk, breath ragged. The only glow came from the monitors, still running on backup. Track 4's camera flickered again. The woman was back, but she wasn't at the platform edge anymore. She was standing directly beneath the camera, head tilted up, face hidden by her hair. The screen buzzed with static, the image warping as if her presence interfered with the feed. Then, slowly, she lifted her head, and I saw her eyes. Or rather, I saw nothing. Just empty black sockets staring into the lens. My stomach lurched. I stumbled back, knocking over the chair. The PA sputtered to life again, even though I'd killed the system. This time, the voice wasn't calm. It was shrieking. "Stand back from the yellow line." The sound rattled the booth, piercing through my skull. I clamped my hands over my ears, screaming for it to stop. And just like that, it cut off. Silence. The monitors blinked to black, every single feed. For a second, I thought the power had finally failed. But then one screen flickered back on. The view wasn't of the platform. It was inside the booth. A grainy black and white image of me, standing frozen in the corner. Behind me, in the frame, was the woman. Closer now, her mouth stretched wide in an impossible grin. I don't remember leaving the booth. One moment I was staring at that screen, paralyzed. The next, I was running up the stairs 2 at a time, lungs burning, not daring to look back. When I burst into the street, dawn was just breaking. The city felt unreal, too quiet, too still. I quit the job the next day. Never went back. But sometimes, when I'm walking past an intercom in another building, or when a PA system clicks on before an announcement, I swear I hear it. That voice, calling my name. And sometimes, just beneath it, a whisper meant only for me. Next train arriving, on track 4.